What if Naruto had Swift Release? A series long awaited to be returned or at least continued on the channel. Since, even now, almost a year later, I still get comments requesting its return. And if you've been keeping up with my community tab posts, you would know that I have been doing a series of polls to determine which series that are currently unfinished I will be continuing or rebooting and in which order. Obviously, this much loved series of What If Naruto Had Swift Release will be going first, as it got a majority of the votes on a 1,000 vote strong poll, meaning it averaged between 400 and 600 votes, which is pretty intense. It's pretty interesting as well, seeing as I didn't expect you as an audience to enjoy this series as much. But I've been blabbering long enough. Here is the long-awaited Part 4 to What If Naruto Had Swift Release.
So now we resume this What If. A little bit after all of, I guess Jiraiya has, kind of taught everyone their new techniques, like, learning more oil techniques, since they don't really have much derivative from, nature and nature release, to be more specific. And she'd be able to do these techniques. When it came to Choji and Neji, they had gotten fire release. Obviously, got water release, and some others got their own affinities. So now we continue this What If. So I get all of Konoha 12, and that includes Naruto too. So whenever I mention Konoha 12, I guess try to remember that I don't have to say and Naruto too. So since he's a part of Konoha 12, random tangent, but I thought I might have, or I should have added that too. So once they continue their journey to find Tsunade, they would come upon a small town in which Jiraiya had found a nearby bathhouse where he could possibly get research. So having to find hotel room for 12 kids is quite interesting, but it is doable with the salary of Asani, right? So he would pay for I believe it would be 6 rooms, if I'm not wrong, right? In the normal hotel room, right? You'd have at least 1-2 beds, and it would actually make sense. I don't even know why I'm going into details of a hotel room, but hey, I'd say 6. Okay, that seems reasonable. So they'd all be settled in, right? And, they're kind of resting from their journey and getting ready to go further. As Naruto and, obviously, are in their own room. And they're just chilling. I don't know what else to say there. I mean, they were traveling. They only have one thing to do. So then they would hear a knock at the door. Now, what would happen is Naruto could, in a sense, for some reason, feel little chakra from the other side of the door, since the people on the other side of the door, or the 2 individuals on the other side of the door, wouldn't be outputting so much of their chakra. So it'd be kind of faint for Naruto to feel. But Neji from the other room and some other chakra sense are really people who are excellent at sensing chakra would be able to feel this. And it would feel as if it was just a normal person, right? Since no one is really outputting that much, I was about to say Ryatsu, chakra. And so Naruto would open the door and he would see someone who had a very similar appearance to that of Sasuke, but older per se. As then he would really look, as he couldn't get his mind on it. Who was this person? As then he would look to his left, and he would see this guy who had features of a shark, and he was kind of a little confused. As Itachi would tell Naruto that he is coming with them, due to him being the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. As before he could say anything, he would just suddenly go blank, as had used her clan technique and was controlling Itachi's body as she would go to, kind of withdraw her kunai to stab Kisame, or at least do something against him, right? Well, it's still in the, Ino and the rest of Konoha 12 are in the element of surprise. But right before she could do anything, obviously, as we know, Ino has very much trouble putting Uchihas in clan techniques, right? Like Madara, for example, and Obito and Itachi. So Itachi would manage to honestly break out of it. I don't know why I said honestly. But he'd be able to break out of it seeing he's about to stab Kisame. Obviously, he would take it back and take back control per se, and also stop himself from stabbing Kisame. And this would give Naruto, I guess, a similar time, or a pretty easy time to, in a way, passively, I don't want to say passively activate, but kind of amp his speeds up in a way, as you know, in the other parts, it's stated by Mysta that I believe it's in the first part or the second, Naruto realized when training for water walking, he can instinctively turn off whenever he's weightless, right? And that sort of comes into factor of his passive ability. It's not always outputting, speed. Sometimes it's lowered to a small factor in which it wouldn't be outputting so much speed, right? It'd just be that of a normal person. So he had a few seconds to output his speed to the max via his swift release, as he'd be able to punch, Itachi in the stomach or in the gut, whatever terms you would like to use. As then this would send Itachi sliding back on the floor. Like he'd grab a grip of himself and slide back in the hallway. As they would then go outside the hallway and prepare to fight. But right before Kisame would unsheath his Samihade, he'd be caught in a shadow paralysis jutsu. This from our boy Shikamaru. And all the other Konoha 12 would then be on the scene. Now with this overwhelming numbers being 6 times their own, there's 12, so simple math, right? 6 times 2. Alright, I don't really have to explain, but pretty much Lee comes out, and the other members, even though Lee is sort of injured per se, he could still, I guess, make it. So they're pretty much fighting, sort of losing battle, but their only advantage is obviously they're S-rank criminals. They have way more experience, more jutsu capabilities, and obviously Itachi has his Sharingan. He could put probably most of them in Genjutsus except Naruto. That's if the Nine Tails decides to intervene. It'll be an interesting way to see if Itachi could put Neji in a Genjutsu, but we're not really going to go over that as we now continue this, right? So Ten will then use her lightning arc and throw it at Itachi. Itachi would then sort of, in a way, use simple Susanoo, not really Susanoo per se, but the aura of his Susanoo would kind of defend him. It was like a small skeleton per se, right? And obviously this would kind of be taxing to him. And the reason why he didn't just body flicker or move out the way is they're in a pretty small hallway, right? And I guess in a way it would be really hard for him to dodge, even though he is Itachi Uchiha, right? But as we know, lightning, when you use lightning-based abilities, it enhances your speed, right? This is kind of be a little hard for Itachi to dodge, and also the fact that I'm trying to actually have some characters at least have some sort of winning chance against Itachi and Kisame, right? So, yeah. And would then see this and try to use her water style. Even though water and lightning don't go together, it would be good for her, right? It's not really hurting her per se, but it's going towards Itachi, right? What if she had used the water as a conductor for the lightning, thus, I guess, magnifying its effect, right? And this would be even this would give Itachi more of a reason, right? This would widen the range of the lightning arc, and it would give Itachi more of a reason to use Susanoo. So it's plausible per se. It's like I'm explaining why I should do things and what if I probably shouldn't do that. But now they would be getting right before they would get into the real battle. Obviously, Sasuke would then appear, right? he would then, see his brother and become enraged, right? Before he would, use his Chidori. And if you're wondering, wasn't Sasuke like restrained? Like, and yes, you would be correct. And you were wondering, for example, right? So the ninjas in the hallway outside of his room were talking of Itachi Uchiha's presence, right? He had came into the village, put Kakashi into a coma with just a few hours he was there. So there was definitely a lot of talk, and Sasuke could clearly hear this, right? And obviously, Sakura visits him every day, giving him like news of like what's going on in like the real world. It's just, I guess that seems plausible per se. And obviously, Sasuke would break out their restraints. There weren't like ceiling tags, like Jiraiya level ceiling tags, right? Or Uzumaki ceiling tags, right? No, I mean, they were pretty simple, right? Because yeah, even though Sasuke did try to hurt like Gaara constantly, Gaara is much healthier now, and he's not really in the hospital, so that takes away Sasuke's reason per se to like kill Gaara if he's not even there. So he would break out of his restraints, and he would go for the Itachi where he was last seen, and obviously he knows he's going after Naruto because he just has a feeling in his gut per se. Whatever feeling drove him to go to Naruto's hotel room that's same in canon pretty much, right? So what would happen is once he would get there, we would go back to the original perspective. He'd be trying to jab Itachi with a Chidori, in which he would pretty much catch his wrist and snap it pretty much. It was pretty easy for him. And he would put Sasuke into a Tsukiyomi and kind of in a way just mentally fuck him, right? So after he would do this, he would then go back to like fighting, or was allowed to go back to capturing Naruto until Jiraiya of the Sannin appeared, as he had used his toad mouth jutsu and trapped the Akatsuki members inside, or he thought he did, as they would run the other way. They did not want to fight a Sannin member today. Maybe a few years from now, but definitely not today. So obviously Itachi would use Amaterasu and escape the same way. Now Neji and Choji, they'd be looking at the fire, the type of fire, and they'd be amazed. Because number one, they're like basically fire users now, right? They see Itachi, someone who used this black flame, and they feel as if this flame was way hotter than any normal flame. It's kind of like a common sense thing, right? They assume it's hotter because it burned through Jiraiya's toad mouth jutsu. Imagine the amount of chakra they thought he put in, and to just burn right through that, it's kind of something to put someone in a daze, overthink. They would like have one overthink about how powerful Itachi was, right? And yeah, I don't know why I had like a small discussion about this, like about like Neji and Choji seeing it, but like since they're fire users, they could take some, I guess, inspiration per se, on how to like do better fire jutsus. I know that kind of sounds in paper form stupid, but it is pretty impactful on the plot. So after the failed capture attempt on Naruto, they would continue their travels until they would make it to the town of Tsunade. As what would happen is they would kind of spend the rest of the day, since like they would spend the night at the hotel, right? Then in the morning they would spend the whole day walking to that town, right? And once they would get there, they'd be famished, right? They're also kind of hungry, and they had found a nearby bar, and they were all pretty much going to eat dinner, right? They're planning to have kind of a loosen up, I guess, and have fun per se, I guess. And they would walk into the bar, and they're looking for a table to sit at, right? And they would see none other than Tsunade, or at least Jiraiya would see Tsunade, and they would recognize each other, and they would all sit down while the other, like, it would be Naruto and Jiraiya, like, sitting at the table, right? And the others just found other tables to sit at, right? make sense, because you wouldn't have 12 people, sitting at a table. Just doesn't work out. It would have to be one big table or one big chair. I don't know. Never mind. And they would start to converse, right? Kind of catching up. As Jiraiya would get to the topic, they were here to convince Tsunade to come back to the position of Hokage, possibly, or at least think about it. And also, they requested her healing services. As Tsunade would ask, who needs to be healed? I heard the chief of the hospital was actually pretty good. As then, obviously, Jiraiya would explain Lee's leg injuries, as obviously earlier I had explained how Lee was there. He still had a bit of injuries, but he had, persevered. That was the word. And he had came along with them. Obviously, he can't really fight at his full power, or even, I don't think he can even open the gates. As Jiraiya would explain, Lee's legs were broken from Gaara, and also the after effects of using the 8 gates. As Tsunade would recognize the technique and ask how many gates he had went into, in which he would respond saying only 5, and he had opened the 6th before he was interrupted by his opponent. As she would kind of become a little worried, but then she would then say, what's in it for me if I come back? As Jiraiya would then say, well, the Hashirama wouldn't be as disappointed in you in the afterlife. As obviously then he would kind of point at Naruto. Then he would then say, doesn't Naruto ever remind you of your brother, or like your little brother? As obviously Tsunade just met the guy, and pretty much Jiraiya kind of, in a sense, mentions how he's similar to Naruto in his goal, right, to become Hokage, right? And obviously, he's not going to say, like, he's Minato's son, like, right then and there. It wouldn't really make sense. They were probably going to say that in private, but obviously, she would kind of be surprised, right? Because she really haven't, even though the goal of Hokage is pretty popular, she herself being kind of not in exile, but in isolation from everyone in the Leaf Village, hadn't really seen a boy who had such ambition, because obviously she had recognized a boy, Naruto, from like his hair and shit. It looked really familiar to that of Minato, and his personality, his flamboyant personality, was similar to that of Kushina's, which really hard to pick. If you see Kushina and you see her like get all angry and shit, like, it's really hard to forget. But obviously she would then, I guess, tell Naruto to in a sense spar her, to like, because what I'm trying to say here is, if Jiraiya is so trusted in this boy and actually thinks he can be Hokage, she wants to see for herself how strong Naruto is. In which they would go outside and they would have their fight, right? Naruto would use his swift clones, his clones, anything he can get an advantage, right? He would summon his clones, as Tsunade would recognize this from Minato, right? As then she would say, using swift clones to try to electrify me, right? That doesn't work. As then she would pour chakra around her body, kind of reinforcing it. And since Naruto, even though he does have large pools of chakra, he would not really be able to bypass, at that point, his clones would not be able to bypass her chakra, right? Her chakra armor, I guess you can say, per se. I don't know why I said per se. I said say and then say per se. Never mind. So obviously they would try to use the effect of the swift clone on Tsunade, in which it wouldn't. She had already been way too adapted to Minato's swift clone, in which she would then throw a punch, kind of destroying all of the clones via kick or punch or sweep kick, whatever you want to think, right? She would, because there's multiple of them, it would probably be way too much detail to go on each action to defeat each one of the clones, right? So she would then wait for Naruto to attack, right? She wasn't impatient. She was a Sonic, right? She at least had some battle IQ, right? So Naruto was kind of thinking the same, but he realized Tsunade wasn't gonna move, and he realized he wanted to try technique. She was the healing Sonic after all. She should be able to heal herself after this. As then he would then raise his hand into the air, forming a Rasengan. As then he would summon a clone, right? As the clone would pour lightning energy into it, creating a sort of imperfect version of what would be, I guess, a lightning manipulated Rasengan, right? I haven't really got a name to it. Who knows, maybe might still give it a name, hopefully. As there would be sort of lightning sparks off the Rasengan as Naruto would go to, slam it into Tsunade's stomach. As it would make contact. But something was weird. After the explosion and debris, Tsunade had gotten up, almost as if nothing had happened. As there was some weird seal on her forehead, this being the, I guess, the 100 healing seal. I don't know why I said I guess. It is the 100 healing seal. As Naruto would be like, he'd kind of be shocked, like, what is that? As Jiraiya would kind of be like eating popcorn, not really eating popcorn, it's metaphorical, but he's really liking the fight so far. Naruto used he added lightning chakra to this Rasengan, and he had more development than even him and Minato, right? Or at least at this point. As then he was even more surprised. Tsunade had to use her 100 heals, but it was only brief as she had then turned it off. As now, Tsunade was impressed. And obviously, she would then say that she, will go. This would lead to obviously her drugging Jiraiya, as then she would go to meet Orochimaru. But this is going to be the end of What If Naruto Had Swift Release, Part 7. If you had personally found yourself enjoying Naruto's perspective and journey, I'd suggest going down there, smashing the like button, and subscribing. While you're also down there, hit the bell button so you can receive notifications when sixmysta posts on this series and other series, so you can get a better view on the possible changes of Naruto Uzumaki and, of course, Ichigo Kurosaki. Of course, there will be other characters, but that will come when the time is here. But without further ado, guys, have a good day.
1, 2, 3, let's go!
Subscribe for more.
Yada yada does it.